Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing that is important to point out about appreciating what a sanctuary is that all sanctuaries have certain things in common, because we refer to our sanctuaries as a mikdash ma'at, as a mini temple. And so you're always going to find within your sanctuaries, you're always going to find certain things that resemble in some way the temple itself. So, for example, the direction in which synagogues face, which is overwhelmingly towards Jerusalem, unless for some zoning reason they couldn't do so, synagogues generally face towards Jerusalem. Why? Towards the temple. The idea is we have a certain temple focus. The architecture of the synagogue reflects that as well. So, for example, and I'll be moving around here, so hopefully I won't make anybody like really nauseous doing so. Okay, there's a table in the middle here, the bima, or the shulchan actually more accurately. And this shulchan is represented, this table is representative of the mizbeach, of the altar on which the sacrifices were offered. All right, so just as there was a mizbeach, we have a table. Now, I should back up even further. So you know that, you see from this picture that I'm showing you, obviously, but you know that this area is raised. It's known as the bima. The bima is a high place. A bama is a high place. So the bima is the raised section. And the reason why there's a raised section is because in the temple, there was also a raised section. The priests, I'm sorry if I'm making you nauseous with the pictures, the priests would stand on the platform and bless the people, which is why the Kohanim, when they duchen, when they bless the people, they come up to the front and onto a raised platform. Just as in the temple, there was a raised platform from which they bless the people, so too in the synagogue, there's a raised platform from which to bless the people. The idea of mechitza, of a separation of genders, also comes from temple architecture. There was a separate women's section, although it's worth pointing out that there were sections in the temple where men and women both stood together, but that's neither here or there for today's discussion. But the point worth making here is that, again, reflecting the architecture of the temple, the question is whether there had to be a separate women's section, and it's a source of debate. Obviously, in Orthodox schools, they have a separate women's section, but it is a source of debate as to whether such a thing is necessary. Okay. Now, I'm sticking specifically to things which are reflective of the temple, and then we'll get into some of the other enhancements of the sanctuary that we have in our sanctuary, which aren't necessarily copied from the temple itself. So, in the temple, oh, by the way, you see those flowers? So it's very interesting as to, flowers are less of a problem, but trees are a problem. Because in the temple, you weren't allowed to plant any trees. There were no trees allowed to be planted. There were no trees on the Temple Mount. Nowadays, there are trees, but those aren't Jewish trees. Okay, so there were no trees because trees used to be an item of worship back in the day, so there were no trees in the temple. So while having flowers in the synagogue is not particularly controversial, having trees is. Is anyone here familiar with synagogues where on Shavuos they like to put trees in the synagogue? There's actually a longstanding custom in many congregations to decorate the synagogue with trees on Shavuos. This is Anyway, we digress. Okay, so let's deal with another important area that mimics the temple. Now, this is not a requirement in synagogues, but you see it in most synagogues, and that is a depiction of the menorah. Now, the depiction of the menorah here might be a little surprising because you'll notice, if you haven't noticed before, that this menorah has only 7 branches. That's not the menorah that we're used to from Hanukkah. And the reason for that is that the menorah of Hanukkah is to remember an 8-day festival, but the menorah in the temple actually was a 7-branched candelabrum. So that's why this one is also 7 branches. Now, the one in the temple was even across the top, whereas this one, for artistic reasons, they're highlighting the center one, but it was a 7-branched menorah, and that's why ours also as well, on both sides of the ark, we have 7-branched menorahs.
Yeah. I didn't recognize it.
There's the other one. Okay, now we get to the Holy of Holies, which is represented in our synagogue. The Holy of Holies is represented by the Holy Ark. Now, the Holy Ark in the temple, the Holy of Holies, I should say, in the temple, contained the Holy Ark, the Ark of the Covenant, right, with the cherubs on top, the golden box, right, in which was the original 10 Commandments.
I'll be back.
Okay. You'll note, of course, this is kind of standard in synagogues, is above the ark, you have the 10 Commandments. That's fairly standard. Most synagogues will have the 10 Commandments represented up front. Now it's time to go inside the ark, somewhere that some of us haven't been before. So this is, if you will, the Holy of Holies of our sanctuary. And in the ark is where we keep our various Torahs. And for those of you who haven't decorated the Torahs on
That's why it's
this night,
so
you've never been inside the ark, this is a view inside the ark of our sanctuary. You can see many Torahs. Torahs vary in size. That's nothing that you're not aware of. Okay. Now, there are other things that are kept in the ark for convenience sake, really. For example, the various extra items that we have that might decorate the Torah, like a yad, help use to read the Torah. Extra items like, say, the breastplate might be lying around here on any given Shabbos. We suddenly decide that we're going to use the Ash Torah this Shabbos. We would just take one of the extra breastplates. Like the Ash Torah doesn't have its own breastplates. We would take a couple of the minarets as well, and we would just put it on there. Also kept in the ark, having just read this, is the scroll of Esther, the Megillah Esther, which is kept in the ark for convenience reasons. Technically doesn't have to be kept in the ark like the Torah, but it generally is for respect and convenience reasons. So that's in here as well. And then hiding underneath, as well stored in here, are other things that are relevant specifically to Torahs. And so you can see in here the white covers for the high holidays kept down here. So that's everything that's going on inside the ark. A couple of other things worth noting. The ark is built with materials that are not flammable, as well, by the way, as the bima. For obvious reasons, we want to make sure that in case of a fire, God forbid, that the ark doesn't go up in flames. And so it's actually built in such a fashion where it's built in a highly fire resistant fashion. For details, you'd have to ask David Kwilecki. He would be able to tell you all the details of our particular ark. The ark, every ark has a curtain. The reason for the curtain is because the Holy of Holies in the temple had a curtain. There was the inner sanctum where the menorah was and where the small altar was. And then there was the Holy of Holies where the Ark of the Covenant was. So inside the outer area and where the Ark of the Covenant was, there was a curtain. So that's why you see a curtain in front of arks, not just doors.
You can't hear me.
We have doors as well. You don't need both doors and curtains, but number one, aesthetically, it's very nice. And number two, on the high holidays, you have extra honors because somebody gets to open the doors and somebody gets to close the doors.
Elchanan?
Yes?
Hi, sorry to interrupt. Somebody, I think, does not have their Zoom on mute, so it makes background noise while you're talking.
Okay, let me see. Morton, can you check? Lois, can you check whether you're muted? Let's see who else might not be muted.
I don't know how to find out if I'm muted.
In the bottom left-hand corner, you see a microphone thing?
Yeah,
Lois, you have to touch your screen. When you
You'll have
touch
it.
your
One
screen,
person at a time, honey. Lois, bottom left, you see the microphone?
Yeah.
Click on the microphone one.
Yeah.
It should mute
Oh.
you.
good.
There
Ellie
you
is
go. So you're now
muted.
muted. Everybody else is muted. Esther,
No.
can you mute yourself, please? And that should be it. Morty, but you're not making any noise. Yeah, I know, Anita. He's so quiet. He's so quiet. Okay, very good. So that's what we have so far. Everything else that we're going to look at, which is primarily our stained windows, stained glass windows that we're going to look at with some detail. Synagogues don't have to have these things. They just do. They're decorative in nature, but they obviously enhance the spirit of the experience by having them. So we're going to take a look. After I field some questions, if there are any, we're going to take a look at the stained glass around the ark, of which there is plenty, and on the sides of the ark, and as well on the side windows here, although they'll be difficult to see at night, but as you'll see momentarily, I have a workaround for that too. Okay, meanwhile, questions thus far. And let me just connect to Facebook. Give me 1 second, just so. Facebook. Live. Okay, so if you have a question on Facebook, remember to please put it into the comment box. Okay, does anybody have any questions thus far? All right, then let's dive into the next segment. Okay. So one of the other elements of a synagogue, which you'll find everywhere because it mimics the temple, is what's known as the Ner Tamid. The Ner Tamid is the eternal light. So you can see just above my head where the eternal light is in our congregation. Okay. The menorah in the temple was always lit, Ner Tamid. It was a constantly burning flame. And therefore, synagogues have a Ner Tamid. Our Ner Tamid is decorated and is inside a beautiful alcove. And we're going to talk about what's in there and what's written in there, because there's all sorts of Hebrew letters up there, and we should know what they say, right? Doesn't that make sense? So let's start. If you look above, we're going all the way up to the top here. I'll see if I can get closer. Okay, so there's 4 Hebrew words above where the Ner Tamid is. You can see them towards the top, maybe. Okay, what they say is, Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Samid. It's a verse from Psalms. And what it means is that I place God before me constantly. In a synagogue in particular, we want to be aware that this is God's space. This is a space for connecting to God. We want to keep God in front of us so that our behavior, our comportment in synagogue is appropriate. Our sense of awe, our sense of reverence is where it needs to be. So almost every synagogue will have Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Samid. They'll have that somewhere in the front of the synagogue. And again, it means I place God before me always. Always aware, always have conscious, I have God right in front of me. Okay. Back to our Ner Tamid. So, giving you the best angle that I can give you. So we're in the Ner Tamid now, directly above my head. And what you can see is that there's orange and yellow in the middle there, etc. What it's depicting is the burning bush. So, well, it's a little hard to tell, but the next time you're here, you'll look at it, you can see the roots of the bush at the bottom, and the flame is further up here. The flame is further up. Inside the flame And again, I don't know how visible this is. If you, by the way, if you want to be able to see what I'm showing you larger, remember that in the upper right-hand corner where it says view, if you go to speaker view, actually, for some reason, they think Esther is the speaker. I'm not sure why. Esther, are you muted? You are muted. I don't know why they think you're the speaker. Let's see if I can pin myself. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so if you make your screen larger, right in here, there's Hebrew letters. And again, when you come here next time, you'll see this, you'll look at it more closely. Those Hebrew letters, and I have to tell you, it took me a long time to sort them out. And while in the background there are some random letters, the Hebrew letters say, Eheyeh asher eheyeh. Eheyeh asher eheyeh, I will be that which I will be, is what God says to Moses as the name that Moses should use when he speaks to the Jewish people. And the people ask, who spoke to you? Eheyeh asher eheyeh. God says to Moshe, tell them, Eheyeh asher eheyeh. My name is Eheyeh asher eheyeh. So that's in here in the burning bush. That's above and behind our Ner Tamid, our ever-present light, our eternal light. I'm sorry if I'm making you nauseous with the visuals here. It's the best that I can do. It'll be a little easier when we get to everything else. Okay, let me pause and see if there are any questions. Let me switch to gallery view because otherwise I won't be able to see you. Okay, if there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand or to drop a comment onto Facebook. Is that a question, Svika?
Rabbi,
Hold on. Bob, what do you got?
so in olden times, did they have a candle in there?
Yeah, they
So
would always
used-
have candles burning.
and somebody who's always responsible for changing and keeping it going all the time. The whole
The
point is
shamish, the sexton. Yep.
okay.
Good question. Svika, did you have a question there?
Do you have a question?
No? Okay, okay, sorry, I thought your hand went up. I'll mute you again. Okay. All right. Now let's get to more of our stained glass windows. We're going to start with our 12 tribes. So on each side of the ark, let me see if I can position this in a way we can get all 6 of them. And not that you haven't seen this before many times, but on each side of the ark, you have 6 of the tribes. Now, how many tribes are there? There are actually 13 tribes, right? But the tribe of Levi, let's see, Reuven, Shimon, Levi does get depicted here. In here, what we have is not the 12 tribes, but the 12 sons of Jacob. So it's not the 12 tribes. Correct. So there's Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, etc. Each one, the depiction in the stained glass is of something from the blessing that Jacob gave to his sons before he died, or something from the life story. So just to give an easy example, the tribe of Levi, there we go. The tribe of Levi, the Levites, the high priest would wear the breastplate, the Urim V'Tumim. He'd wear the special breastplate with the 12 stones on it. So the artist, who we're going to meet shortly, by the way, or at least read shortly, the artist chose to put for Levi something that was indicative of his tribe. Yehuda is the tribe of kingship. That's where the ruler comes from. Again, I'm sorry for making you nauseous with the pictures. Okay, so the crown is here. Yisachar was a scholar, and more than a scholar, Yisachar was also an astronomer. So he depicts here the cycles of the moon in this picture as well. So you have 6 on one side and 6 on the other. And again, these are the 12 sons of Jacob, not the 12 tribes, the 12 sons of Jacob. And if you look, if you work your way through these 12 pictures, between your general knowledge of the Bible stories, as well as looking inside, I believe it's chapter 49 of Exodus, you should be able to decode what most of these pictures are representing. One last one, which you won't see represented in the Chumash itself, but I do want to point it out, and that is the tribe of Binyamin. The tribe of Binyamin, this is a facade from the temple. The temple sat in a strip of land from the tribe of Benjamin, and hence it's represented here. Benjamin is represented by the temple. So that's our 12 sons of Jacob surrounding the ark. Again, this is artist choice, if you will. There's no ritual need to put any of these representations up. However, for artistic reasons, for aesthetic reasons, it can be done. Okay. One last note here, by the way, which I neglected to mention, but behind the Ten Commandments here on the stained glass on the ribbon, and again, you want to look at this when you come here next time, are Hebrew letters as well. That's just the Hebrew alphabet. And the symbolism behind that is that God created the world out of using the Hebrew alphabet. It's the source code, if you will, of creation. So there's also, if you look really carefully, you can see Bereshis, you can see Zachor S, you can see various things represented very subtly in the writing. I didn't even notice some of this until just now, but so the artist, knowing that the Ten Commandments, I guess we're going to go up there, but in the background, there's both the Hebrew alphabet as well as certain important words from the Torah, like Bereshis in the beginning, or Zachor Es Shabbos, remember the Shabbos, Anochi Hashem from the first of the Ten Commandments are very subtly etched into that stained glass as well. You really do well if you have a chance to come up here and take a close look. There are a lot of subtleties here. Okay, questions?
Rabbi?
Yes, Bob.
So how was these designs chosen? Was it by committee? Was it individual?
Here in our sanctuary, I have no
Yes.
idea.
I have no idea how.
No idea. Predates me.
Okay. Gotta get David to.
That's right. That's right. Although we'll see a little bit more information shortly, because we have on display in our hallway here, we have the artist's write-up of what these various stained glass windows represent. And we're going to look at what he had to write. We're going to take a look at it for the 4 windows on the side. Okay. I see a hand up. Ooh, I like that. I don't know who it is, but I just asked you to unmute because you have your hand up. Somebody's got their hand up. Oh, it was
I
me.
have my hand up, but I never put it up.
Why do I have my hand up? That's weird. Okay. Anyway,
Let's see.
now, next up, the stained glass windows, which are to the left and right upper of the ark. So that's these guys. Closing in, these guys, these rectangular looking guys on the side. We're going to talk about them as well as the curved windows next to them. So we're going to talk about the curved windows and these guys. These windows represent the holidays of the year, the special times of the year. So in this window here, you have working your way, that's the 3 pilgrimage festivals. You can see the matzah at the bottom for Pesach. There's a Sefer Torah for Shavuos, and you have a lulav and esrog for Sukkos. Okay. On the window next, well, we'll come back to the window next to it over there. Let's come over to this side. Here you have the three high holidays. You have Rosh Hashanah represented by the shofar at the top. At the top, you have the scales of justice representing Yom Kippur, and then you have the Kiddush cup and the candles representing Shabbos. So those are the three that are represented here. To the left and right of the ark, and I'll give you a zoom also on this, but if you could only see the contortions I'm doing. To the left and right of the ark are the 7 species of fruit for which the land of Israel is praised. The most prominent, you can see the red one, that's the pomegranate. That's the easiest one to make out. You got the pomegranate, the grapes, the wheat, the barley, the spelt, the figs, the olives. I'm sure I'm missing one of the species, but I think I got all 7. But those are the 7 species for which the land of Israel is praised. So just to review, there's your Ner Tamid, there's your constant, your eternal light, which is themed along the lines of the burning bush. You have flanking the ark on both sides, you have 6 on each side, the 12 sons of Jacob. Flanking that on those rectangles are the 3 pilgrimage festivals and Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Shabbos. And the curved work to the right and to the left, the curved work is the 7 species of the land of Israel. And then behind the 10 commandments is the Hebrew alphabet, the source code of the Torah, as well as some important phrases from the Torah. Okay, I'll pause again for questions, and then we'll head to the 4 stained glass windows on the side, which are really chock full of symbolism. Okay, so let's make our way over here. I'm going to move the penalty box. There we go. So we have stained glass windows on both sides here. And these windows are designed to recount stories from the Torah. It's actually much of the narrative of the stories from the Torah. Now, it's a little hard to see them through a camera on a computer at night. The backlighting is just not strong enough. So I'll come close just so you can see a little bit. So here you can see there's the Ark of the Covenant at the bottom. And at the bottom of this window, this is actually the 10 Commandments over here. But instead of struggling to see what they are and what they say, I want to point out to you something which you probably have noticed, but just in case you haven't, you should just be aware that we haven't been left to figure out what's on those windows by ourselves. Because if you exit the sanctuary, immediately on your right, hiding kind of behind the door, are those 2 papers. And those 2 papers are composed by Barak Uranovsky, who is the glass artist who made our ark and these stained glass windows. And he's going to explain all of the things that we have seen, and we'll be able to see some of them in better detail because I'm going to share the pictures with you. But you should be aware that that explanation exists. It's right there on the wall, right outside the sanctuary, and it explains all of the stained glass, or most of the stained glass that we've looked at. So now, instead of looking at those side windows, we're going to look at a picture of those side windows. So it's time for me to share the screen. Here we go. Window. No, we want 321. Sorry, bear with me, please. Okay. We're going to make this nice and big. And let me reduce this so I can see it. Okay, the idea of the dome is divine inspiration. I wanted the dome to be the source of the stone tablets. The blues are the sky, space, etc. And introduced into this are elements of light and spirituality, reds, yellows, etc. The center is the burning bush, and the writing, Ehya asher ehya, I will be that which I will be. Again, by the way, he's talking obviously about this area here. The energy comes down into the tablets. Around the luchot, the tablets, are the letters all flying around and being divinely inscribed onto the luchot, onto the tablets. On the two sides are the 7 species that the land of Israel is blessed with. Below are the 12 tribes of Israel. Each tribe color is symbolic of the jewel on the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and in the center is the classic symbol of each tribe. The final elements are the festivals, which are on the two far sides of the ark. The right are Rosh Hashanah, Shofar, Yom Kippur, scales of justice, and Shabbat candles. And now you get a better look at that over here. And the left are the 3 regalim, the 3 pilgrimage festivals, Pesach Matzah, Shavuot Torah, and Sukkot Lulav. So that is the symbolism of those pieces. And now we're going to take a look at the ones that we haven't investigated yet. I really want to urge you again, the next time that you're in the sanctuary after services, to come up and take a look, especially during daylight, to take a look at these beautiful stained glass windows. But here we go. So there's 2 windows on each side. So when it says the right side here, there are 2 windows on the right side here. The left is Avot, our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. The bottom starts with Abraham, the tent for hospitality, the Eshel, the terebinth, and the midrash of Abraham Ivri, all the world's paganality on one side of the river, and only Abraham, the first believer in Hashem, on the other side. Let's see how well we can see that here. Here's the tent, bottom left here. Here's the tent. Here's the river. Here's all the pagans, and Abraham is on the other side. He is the Ivri. He is the one who is on the other side. The first believer in Hashem on the other side. Next, the fire and shofar symbolize Akedah Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. Here's the shofar in the middle here, and the fire being carried, which is the description of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. In the description there, it says that they carried the fire, they carried the flame. Above that is the Sulam, Jacob's ladder, and also the Kabbalistic ladder of the Sefirot. The Sefirot is a Kabbalistic idea of emanations, God on top, we're on the bottom, and there are various emanations. Anyway, the ladder is the symbolism. Also is the struggle between Jacob and the angel, a struggle that carries on until today. So over here on the left, Jacob and the angel are struggling. The right side, we're on the right side, but the right of the right is from Yosef until the Exodus, the forming of a nation. At the bottom are sheaves of wheat and the sun, moon, and stars from Joseph's dream. Next is his coat in blood, reminiscent of how he was sold into slavery. There's the coat of many colors in blood. Above is the cup of Benjamin, symbolizing the story of the brothers coming to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, and Joseph revealing himself to them. Above this is a pyramid symbolizing the slavery, even though we didn't build the pyramids, but it's okay. Blood, sheaves symbolizing sheaves that have been stripped by the locusts, dead animals, and a doorpost with blood on it, For the smiting of the firstborn. Finally, on the top is the splitting of the sea and the forming of the holy nation. The crooked staff is the staff of Moses, our shepherd, all the way up here. Okay, so that's the two windows on the right side. I'll just give you a look at them while I switch pages anyway. So let's stop the share. Here are those two windows. Again, kind of hard to make them out at night. But for what it's worth, I'll get nice and close. All right. And here are all the people on one side of the river, and here's Abraham's tent on the other side of the river. This really needs to be enjoyed in daylight. So let's go to the other side. Let's go to the other side, share screen. Okay, window. Now I need 31. File, open recent. 21. Here we go. No, that is incorrect. Window, I gotta go back to 32. I apologize for the delay. Here we go. On the left side of the ark, again, set off, there are two other of these tablets. The left is a continuation of the last window, which ended with the Exodus. This one is the Dor HaMidbar, the desert wanderings. The bottom starts with Matan Torah, the receiving of the Torah. Above that is a palm tree that Bnei Yisrael threw into the bitter waters at Marah that turned them sweet. Next is a huge bunch of grapes on a pole held by two of the spies. And above that is the brass serpent. There's a story of the brass serpent that was used to heal the Jews from one of their plagues. On top of that are the tents of Israel. Over here, Matovu Ohalecha Yisrael, how goodly are your tents. Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkan Osecha Yisrael, sorry. Don't mean to misquote. On top of that, with the Anane Yaakov, the clouds of glory hanging over. And finally, the Mishkan. Here's the tabernacle and the clouds of glory, working our way up. To the left and right are the pillar of fire, coming up this left side here, and the pillar of smoke. The right is the book of Joshua. It starts with the crossing of the Jordan with the Ark of the Covenant, and the water standing up as a wall on one side, on the left. Above is Jericho collapsing, with stones flying out as the shofars blow. Above this is Shemesh Givon Bidom, the sun standing still for Joshua. Above that is the division of Israel, the Nachlaot, the division of Israel into the tribes. The tents of the Jewish people now resettled in the land of Israel. And from the covenant at Gilgal, the covenant that the Jewish people made, they set up these stones at Gilgal as a sign of the covenant. So those are placed over here. You can see them up here. In brief, ladies and gentlemen, you need to see it to appreciate it. Okay, so needless to say, again, next time that you're here, and hopefully, again, everybody, when they're comfortable, if you're getting your shots, and for those of you who didn't hear, I mentioned it earlier, I got my first shot today, so I'm on my way. Once you have your shots, or whenever you're comfortable and the decision is right for you, we are here. But we see that people are coming a little bit more now. It's opening up a little bit. And we're very excited to be able to start to slowly get back to where we need to be as a congregation. And that starts with our services. So hopefully this will serve as something of an inducement to want to come see our sanctuary sooner if that's appropriate for you. But either way, it's a beautiful sanctuary. It's got many, many unusual elements. These stained glass windows are truly unique. Kol hakavod to everybody who was involved in building this beautiful place. And whatever committee made the decisions, Bob, whoever made the decisions on these things, they're certainly very, very beautiful. And I want to encourage everybody to come and look at them. And if you notice something in them that I haven't mentioned, please point them out, because I'm sure there are many subtleties beyond what, even what we looked at this evening. Happy to take any questions that you might have about what we discussed, or any other questions about the architecture of the sanctuary.
Said nothing about,
Rabbi?
Yes.
So I talked to Gadi, and because it'd be interesting for the congregation to know, and he installed into the system, to the blower system, a device which basically kills off any viruses that might get through. Because that's one of the most difficult parts of being in a closed sanctuary or closed area, is the recirculation of that air. And if in fact it's not cared for properly, can reinfect people. So we've done that, he's done that very well.
Excellent. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, Lenny knew it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hold on. You're welcome. It's my pleasure. I appreciate the note. Thank you. Okay, hold on one second, please. All right, folks, I want to thank you. Oh, wait. There we go. Mark Pfeffer, what do you got? Hold on, ask to unmute.
I was wondering, are any of the things that we just saw, are any of them imported from Israel, or have they all come from this area?
Yeah, no, I believe, again, I'm not the best person to ask these questions to, because again, this all predates me, but my understanding is these stained glass windows I know actually came from Israel. It was an Israeli artist and he brought them over and he installed them. So that I know for sure. I'm pretty sure the furniture also is from Kibbutz Lavi in Israel. So we've definitely got plenty of Israel going on in our sanctuary.
Including the outside stone.
The outside stone, correct. Sorry, Ellie, I muted you by mistake, so I have to ask you to unmute again. There we go.
I unmuted. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So the symbol of the snake around the staff, the copper, you said it was out of a metal, correct? It was not a living snake. Is that something that was shared among many peoples in that region, not just the Jews, as a symbol of healing?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
Is that where the medical symbol gets the stakes from? Do they get it from us then? Do you ever see the symbol for?
That I'm pretty sure they got from the Greeks. But that's interesting that the snake is a symbol of healing, and it's a symbol of healing. The doctor one, I think, is from the Greeks. Does anybody know that authoritatively? The doctor.
So did the Greeks get it from us then?
Maybe. Certainly possible.
you know, the caduceus is from the Greeks or the Jews? The caduceus, is that a Jewish thing or a Greek thing? Yeah. Marty said it's a Greek, the caduceus is from the Greeks.
Yeah.
But they were
Yeah,
Greek.
but maybe they got it from us, they took things from us.
Ancient Greek god of medicine. It's from the ancient Greek god of medicine and
The
healing.
Greeks, listen, the Greeks
Right.
borrowed everything. Don't be fooled. The Greeks weren't terribly original. They borrowed myths and then changed the names to protect the innocent.
It was from Hippocrates.
Okay?
Yeah, but he must have gotten it from us because it's in the Torah, and the Torah predates all of them.
Yeah, it could be. Well, it could be. I simply don't know authoritatively. That's a very, very fair question. Somebody look it up on Wikipedia. Maybe they'll tell you what the origin of the symbol is.
Wikipedia.
It's a good source. I know teachers rag on it all the time, but the bottom line.
I'm going to tell you may I share a Wikipedia story quickly?
You can. I do want to say as a disclaimer, on controversial subjects, Wikipedia can be very controversial.
Okay,
On
so
factual stuff, it can be very good.
so factual, it was, children were doing the reports on Pocahontas, and all of a sudden, all the various names of her tribe and her father, and when you pronounce these names out loud, you realize that they were all filthy. So someone had gone in there, changed, added in all this material, but if you announced it, you said, oh my, you realized what you were saying. So Wikipedia, and come on.
All right, listen, like every other source. It's good for what
Right.
it's good for, and it's not for what it's not.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I'm certainly not here to defend Wikipedia.
No, of course not.
All right.
Good night.
Ladies
Thank
and
you.
Gentlemen. What? Is that a question? Was there a question flying in?
No, it's Michelle. I'm saying good night. Thank you. Nice seeing some of you who I don't see often.
It's nice to see you all too. We will be back in 2 weeks, not next week. I'll be away next week, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. And that's about the Haggadah because, hey, Pesach is coming. The Tuesday night before Pesach, classes were done in person. Somebody's doing a lot of static, so whoever you are, if you can mute yourself. In terms of the Tuesday night before Pesach, I am happy to give a class. Historically, when I gave classes in person, nobody came. I get the sense the Tuesday night before Passover, I'm seeing the faces here. Some will come, some won't come, but let's see. All right, we'll take a poll in 2 weeks about whether we should have class in 3 weeks. I'm happy to give it. I just, historically, the Tuesday before Pesach, I've gotten one or none people in person, so. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you for being with us. I hope that this was enriching, and hope to see you all in shul real soon. Bye-bye.
Rabbi, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay. I wanted to comment that I just wanted
Wait.
to-
Tremendous static. I don't know if it's you. I can
I
hear
just
you.
want-
A lot of static.
It might be, I don't know, for some reason, it might be for me, but then I can't talk if I mute, so. I just wanted to comment that one of the possible sources for some of the furniture and decorations in the shul came from the Muncie Jewish Center.
Yes,
No.
this is
No,
true. The
none of it?
bima that I'm leaning on, I believe, is from the Muncie Jewish Center. We have a lot of things that are correct. That's true. Some of the chairs in the Muncie Jewish Center and also Shari Tefillah, we do have a number of those items from previous congregations. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, he's finishing up.
All right, y'all.
Good night,
Have a good
Rabbi.
night. Bye-bye.